Imagine scrolling through YouTube at midnight when you stumble upon something strange. A film you have never heard of yet, it feels like it knows you. These hidden sci-fi gems were once lost, buried by time, forgotten by studios, and ignored by algorithms. But they are here waiting in plain sight, free to watch. Let us uncover 15 science fiction treasures you can stream right now before they vanish again. Number 15. Time of the Wolf, 2003. Once dismissed as too bleak and too slow, this post-apocalyptic film from France became a haunting prophecy. Directed by Michael Haneke, it follows a family wandering through a ruined Europe after an unexplained disaster. There are no mutants, no explosions, just silence, hunger, and moral decay. At release, audiences fled from its cold realism. Critics accused it of being cruel and unwatchable, while others quietly called it genius. Censors in several countries hesitated to broadcast it, fearing panic due to its realistic portrayal of societal collapse. Behind the scenes, Haneke refused studio pressure to add action scenes. He insisted the true horror was human indifference. That decision killed its box office chances, but made it one of the most truthful visions of the end of civilization. Years later, its images resurfaced on YouTube. Viewers now praise its eerie quietness, its courage to show not what we want, but what we fear. The film stands as a mirror, whispering that the apocalypse is not a storm from above, but a slow erosion of empathy. Number 14. The Man from Earth, 2007. Filmed in just 8 days in a single room, this film became an underground legend. It begins as a casual farewell party. A professor tells his friends he has lived for 14,000 years. They laugh, then realize he is serious. What follows is not spectacle, but a conversation that stretches time belief and reason. No studio wanted it. Executives said a story without effects could never sell. The script by Jerome Bixby sat in a drawer for decades until fans uploaded it online. The film went viral not through theaters, but through sharing networks. For years it circulated freely. Now it lives officially on YouTube, drawing new thinkers each day. Its controversy was philosophical. Religious groups called it blasphemous. Universities debated its ideas. Yet the director Richard Schenkman never backed down. He called it a story about how fragile truth becomes when it challenges faith. The film's minimalism became its power. No sets, no explosions, just thought. Decades later, viewers still argue if the man was immortal or just mad. Its legacy reminds us that real science fiction begins in the mind, not the machinery. Number 13. Coherence, 2013. Coherence was made on a tiny budget, filmed in one house with actors improvising their lines. What emerged was one of the most unsettling science fiction thrillers of the century. The story follows a dinner party that descends into chaos when a passing comet fractures reality. Each character meets other versions of themselves in parallel universes bleeding into one another. At first, few noticed it. No big stars, no marketing, just whispers. But those who found it felt disturbed by how real it felt. The director James Ward Bierkitt kept the production secret even from the cast, who received only fragments of the story each night. The confusion you see on screen is genuine. Its release scared distributors. Too strange, too abstract, they said. Yet word spread online. Critics began comparing it to early Twilight Zone episodes fused with quantum dread. On YouTube, it found new life audiences replaying scenes, hunting for clues in the background shadows. Coherence proved that science fiction does not need spectacle to terrify. Just an idea, simple and infinite. What if every choice you made still lives beside you, waiting to collide? Number 12. Prospect, 2018. Prospect began as a small short film that nobody expected to survive the festival circuit. It told the story of a teenage girl and her father who travel to an alien moon to mine precious gems hidden in toxic soil. Yet this was no fantasy of sleek spaceships and noble explorers. The world of Prospect was dirty rusted and hostile. The film's tone was immediately divisive. Some viewers praised its handcrafted realism, while others rejected its slow rhythm and eerie silences. Directors Zeke Earle and Christopher Caldwell built every prop and suit by hand using salvaged parts. They wanted it to feel like the future was old and decaying. The atmosphere dripped with grime and melancholy. When it first premiered, major studios ignored it. Executives said audiences only wanted massive CGI epics, not quiet stories about survival and greed. But when the film arrived on YouTube, its fate changed. Fans of independent sci-fi hailed it as a revelation. They admired how the movie used sound design instead of explosions to create tension and emotion instead of spectacle to tell truth. Behind the scenes, the cast worked in real mud, breathing through heavy helmets under suffocating lights. Actress Sophie Thatcher later said she had nightmares for weeks after filming. Yet her performance became unforgettable. Viewers compared her haunted expression to early Ridley Scott heroines. Prospect's legacy grew as a symbol of rebellion against big-budget formulas. It showed that atmosphere can be stronger than action, and that the most alien worlds are reflections of human desperation. On YouTube, its popularity continues to climb quietly, transforming it from forgotten relic to cult miracle. The film remains proof that sometimes buried gold can be found only in the dirt. Number 11. Another Earth, 2011. Another Earth arrived like a whisper from space. Directed by Mike Cahill and starring Britt Marling, it was an intimate story about guilt, hope, and cosmic reflection. The film imagines a second identical Earth appearing in the sky on the eastern night a young woman causes a fatal car accident. While she wrestles with remorse, scientists race to contact their mirror selves on the twin planet. At first glance, it sounds like typical sci-fi fantasy. Yet the film barely leaves the ground. Its power lies not in spectacle, but emotion. Audiences expecting alien encounters found instead a human story about forgiveness. This duality divided critics. Some called it pretentious, others hailed it as visionary. The studio worried it was too philosophical for mainstream audiences. When it premiered at Sundance, it nearly disappeared among louder competitors. But the quiet beauty of its premise lingered. Over time, YouTube audiences rediscovered it, sharing clips of the haunting scene where Earth 2 rises above the horizon, glowing like a ghost of our mistakes. Behind the camera, Cahill shot the movie with borrowed equipment guerrilla style across rural locations. The budget was so small that actors helped carry lighting gear between takes, but that roughness gave it texture realism and a strange purity. Its controversy lay in its message. Was it science fiction or spiritual parable? The Vatican banned promotional screenings in some circles, deeming it too close to theological speculation. Yet viewers connected deeply. It invited them to imagine meeting their other selves, not to conquer, but to ask forgiveness. Today, Another Earth stands as a reminder that science fiction is not only about what we can build, but what we must face within. Its reflection is not cosmic, but painfully human. Number 10. The Vast of Night, 2019. The Vast of Night slipped into the world quietly, like the signal it portrays. Set in the 1950s in a small New Mexico town, it follows a switchboard operator and a radio host who intercept a strange frequency during a basketball game. The mystery grows with every call until the entire town begins to sense that something unearthly watches them. Shot in moody shadows and long tracking shots, the film feels like it escaped from an old Twilight Zone reel. Director Andrew Patterson made it for less than a single episode of modern television. Yet every frame crackles with tension. When it premiered, critics were stunned. How could something so simple feel so vast? The studio struggled to market it, unsure if audiences would sit through a dialogue-heavy story with almost no effects. For months it vanished from conversation until it appeared on YouTube and streaming sites. There, it found believers. Viewers compared it to vintage radio dramas where imagination does the heavy lifting. Behind the scenes, Patterson hid Easter eggs across the film, referencing UFO lore and Cold War paranoia. The mysterious sound design used real military frequencies from old recordings. That authenticity made some viewers uneasy. Online forums spread rumors claiming parts of the dialogue were based on real classified events. The vast of night became a word-of-mouth phenomenon, and even NASA. Employees reportedly praised its accuracy in capturing the feeling of early SETI research. Today, it endures as a rare modern film that recaptures the wonder and fear of the unknown without showing it. The darkness hides more than it reveals, and that is why it lingers. It reminds us that the scariest thing in science fiction is not what arrives from the sky, but what listens back when we call. Number 9. I-Origins, 2014. I-Origins began as an experimental indie drama and slowly became one of the most debated science fiction films of the decade. Directed by Mike Cahill, the same visionary behind Another Earth, this story explores reincarnation genetics and the search for spiritual truth within science. It follows a molecular biologist obsessed with the human eye who discovers a pattern that could prove souls exist. The film was quietly released with little promotion, yet it generated intense discussion in universities and online communities. Critics were divided. Some called it breathtaking, others dismissed it as pseudoscience. But its message refused to fade. I-Origins blurred the line between laboratory experiment and metaphysical awakening, challenging the notion that science and faith must remain separate. Behind the scenes, the production nearly collapsed several times. Funding was lost, then resurrected through private backers who believed in the story's depth. The cast worked without luxury in real laboratories and crowded apartments to capture the feeling of obsession and discovery. Director Cahill shot using natural light to give every frame a sense of realism, even during surreal sequences. Its controversy came from religious groups who condemned its central idea that identity could persist through DNA. The topic of the afterlife being mapped scientifically struck nerves across several institutions. Some countries delayed screenings, fearing it would ignite debate over evolution and belief. When uploaded to YouTube, it found unexpected resurrection. Viewers began dissecting its themes, scene by scene, creating an underground following of spiritual scientists and philosophical thinkers. I-Origins now stands as a haunting reflection on human curiosity. It dares to ask if progress without soul leads only to blindness. In an age of algorithms, the film whispers a reminder that perhaps the universe is watching through our very eyes. Number 8. Moon, 2009. Moon was not born in Hollywood, but in the quiet imagination of Duncan Jones, son of legendary musician David Bowie. It was created as a love letter to classic sci-fi films like Solaris and Silent Running. The story follows Sam Bell, a man nearing the end of a 3-year mining contract on the moon. His only companion is an artificial intelligence named Gertie. But as the mission ends, he discovers he is not alone. The film received early praise from critics, yet mainstream audiences ignored it. Many considered it too slow, too thoughtful for a generation addicted to explosions. The studio had little faith in marketing a lonely man talking to a robot. But beneath its calm surface hid one of the most emotionally charged stories of the century. Behind the scenes, the film's entire lunar base was built in an abandoned studio with cardboard and glue. Every model and crater was handcrafted to recall the analog era of filmmaking. Sam Rockwell performed almost every scene alone, sometimes acting opposite pre-recorded footage of himself. The psychological strain was real and visible on screen. Its themes of identity and corporate exploitation drew quiet controversy. Some governments even requested cuts to certain dialogue, hinting at unethical cloning. The film became a metaphor for human labor in a mechanized world. When it arrived on YouTube years later, fans began calling it the modern 2001. The film inspired countless essays about loneliness in the age of automation. Moon endures because it captures something timeless. It tells us that isolation reveals not emptiness, but truth. The human spirit cannot be duplicated, no matter how perfect the replica. Number 7. The Endless, 2017. The Endless defied every expectation of low-budget filmmaking. Directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, it tells the story of two brothers who return to the UFO death cult they escaped from years earlier. What they find is not madness, but a time loop that traps everyone in eternal repetition. At release, few theaters showed it. The studio did not know how to market a film that was both science fiction horror and philosophy. Audiences who discovered it walked away shaken. The film combined cosmic dread with quiet intimacy, making viewers question if destiny itself can be rewritten. Behind the camera, the directors also played the lead roles. They filmed in remote forests using old cameras and improvised lighting. Every scene was designed to feel timeless, as if reality itself were glitching. During production, several local residents complained to authorities after hearing strange sounds at night, unaware they were part of the sound design. Critics praised the movie for building an entire universe without special effects. Some called it a spiritual successor to Lovecraft. Others saw it as a study of trauma and belief. Its ambiguity became legend. Online platforms, including YouTube, turned it into a cult treasure. Fans theorized that its events were linked to the director's earlier film, Resolution, forming a secret cinematic loop. That revelation exploded across forums, making The Endless one of the most discussed indie sci-fi films ever made. Its legacy is one of eerie repetition and poetic terror. It reminds us that time might not be linear and that our choices could be endless reflections of themselves. The film closes with silence and sky, leaving you uncertain if escape is ever possible or if the loop continues even as you press replay. Number 6. Primer, 2004. Primer is the film that made physics. Students and conspiracy theorists lose sleep. Written, directed, and acted by engineer Shane Carruth, this tiny independent film explored the accidental discovery of time travel by two garage inventors. There were no lasers or portals, just rusted pipes and electrical noise. Yet what began as curiosity spiraled into paranoia, betrayal, and infinite recursion. Shot for less than the cost of a used car, Primer became a cult enigma. It premiered at Sundance and left half the audience stunned in silence. The dialogue used real engineering jargon so authentic that viewers felt they were eavesdropping on reality. Those who tried to map its timeline found dozens of overlapping loops, each creating new versions of the inventors, manipulating and deceiving each other. Behind the scenes, Carruth worked entirely alone, editing, mixing sound, and composing music. The stress was so immense that he nearly abandoned the project midway. No studio understood it. Distributors said it was too confusing. But that confusion became its power. Over the years, Primer migrated to YouTube, where passionate fans began decoding it frame by frame. Whole communities built charts, diagrams, and essays attempting to untangle its paradoxes. The deeper they looked, the more it resembled an experiment that had escaped its own control. Primer remains both a triumph and a warning. It captures the danger of intelligence unmoored by morality. The real machine is not the one in the storage unit, but the mind that refuses to stop calculating. In its quiet hum, we hear the truth of human invention. Progress never asks if it should, only if it can. Number 5. Europa Report, 2013. Europa Report dared to blend documentary realism with interstellar mystery. Presented as recovered footage from a doomed space mission, it follows astronauts sent to explore Jupiter's icy moon Europa in search of life. Their journey unfolds through onboard cameras where wonder slowly turns into dread. When it premiered, critics admired its realism, but general audiences ignored it. There were no famous faces or easy thrills. Instead, it felt like a real NASA transmission spliced together after disaster. Its tone was cold, methodical, and heartbreakingly human. Behind the scenes, the filmmakers worked with actual scientists to design plausible spacecraft interiors. The zero-gravity sequences were done through intricate wire rigs rather than digital trickery. Lead actor Sharlto Copley confessed that the isolation of filming inside claustrophobic sets began affecting his dreams. Controversy arose when early viewers claimed certain footage looked too authentic. Online rumors spread that some clips were real NASA archives. The studio issued statements clarifying it was fiction, yet the myth persisted, adding to its cult status. When it landed on YouTube, it finally found its audience. Viewers who craved realism over spectacle embraced it, calling it the most believable space movie ever made. The final revelation on Europa's frozen surface shocked many, not through horror, but awe. Europa Report endures as a love letter to curiosity and sacrifice. It reminds us that exploration is not about survival, but devotion to knowledge, even if the truth swallows us whole. It is a film for those who look at the stars and understand that beauty and terror share the same orbit. Number 4. Monsters, 2010. Before he directed giant blockbusters, Gareth Edwards made Monsters almost entirely by himself. With a tiny crew and 2 actors, he traveled through Central America, filming a world overrun by extraterrestrial creatures years after their arrival. The story follows a cynical photojournalist and a stranded traveler journeying through infected zones where alien life has blended into the landscape. At release, many expected a typical monster film. What they received was quiet heartbreak. The creatures appear rarely, yet their presence dominates every frame. The story becomes about humanity adapting to fear rather than defeating it. The tone feels documentary raw and strangely beautiful. Behind the scenes, Edwards used real locals as extras and filmed guerrilla style without permits. The alien effects were created on his personal computer after filming. Every storm, every flicker of light was crafted digitally by his hands alone. Studios initially refused to distribute it, claiming audiences wanted spectacle, not subtlety. But when uploaded online, the film found passionate defenders who praised its emotional depth. YouTube users began sharing clips describing it as a metaphor for immigration war and environmental decay. Its controversy stemmed from its ending, which some saw as anti-heroic. There was no battle, no triumph, only surrender to coexistence. That quiet defiance turned it into a modern myth. Monsters remains one of the most haunting examples of what can be done with vision rather than money. It shows that science fiction is not about aliens invading Earth, but about Earth learning to live with its ghosts. The monsters are never far away because they are already within us, waiting to be recognized. Number 3. Under the Skin, 2013. Under the Skin is not a film you watch, but one that consumes you. Directed by Jonathan Glazer, it stars Scarlett Johansson as an alien creature who drives through Scotland seducing and harvesting lonely men. The premise sounds simple, yet the execution defies everything Hollywood taught audiences about storytelling. There is almost no dialogue, only hypnotic images and an unsettling electronic score that hums like something alive. When it premiered, it divided critics completely. Some called it a masterpiece, others stormed out of screenings. It was too quiet, too alien, too uncomfortable. Yet that was precisely the point. Glazer wanted viewers to experience humanity through non-human eyes, to feel our own world as strange and frightening. Johansson's performance relied on real, unscripted encounters filmed with hidden cameras. The men she spoke to on screen did not know they were part of a movie until afterward. Behind the scenes, chaos ruled. The production crew followed her in a van across real Scottish streets filming reactions of random strangers. The unpredictability made the footage raw but dangerous. Some scenes had to be cut due to legal issues and public complaints about invasion of privacy. The budget was nearly destroyed when locations were lost overnight. Censors in several countries attempted to block it, claiming it was too disturbing. Television networks refused trailers, saying audiences would not understand its imagery. But online, it flourished. When the film hit YouTube years later, viewers discovered something new each time they watched. Some saw it as feminist allegory, others as meditation on empathy and consumption. The haunting score by Mika Levi became legend, influencing a generation of filmmakers. Under the Skin's reputation has grown from misunderstood experiment to one of the most important sci-fi films of the 21st century. It leaves you with an eerie feeling that perhaps humans are the true predators wandering a planet they no longer recognize. The silence it leaves behind is heavier than sound itself. Number 2. The Signal, 2014. The Signal began as a modest independent project and transformed into a labyrinth of mystery and fear. Directed by William Eubank, it follows 3 college students who trace a hacker to a remote desert facility only to wake up inside a sterile government complex with no memory of what happened. What begins as a road trip becomes a nightmarish exploration of identity, captivity, and transformation. The film was praised for its cinematography, yet it baffled mainstream audiences. The pacing is slow, deliberate, filled with unanswered questions. Viewers who expected action got silence, dread, and escalating paranoia. Studio executives reportedly pushed for a simpler ending, but Eubank refused. He wanted confusion because confusion was the truth. Behind the scenes, production was extremely difficult. The desert locations reached unbearable heat levels, causing equipment to fail repeatedly. The actors performed in heavy suits designed to resemble biomechanical prosthetics, weighing more than 50 pounds each. The claustrophobia you see on their faces was real exhaustion. Its release caused quiet controversy. Some believed the movie contained hidden references to secret military experiments, while others accused it of borrowing from classified UFO encounters. Online debates erupted about its cryptic ending, revealing a colossal alien ship above Earth. To this day, interpretations vary widely. When it arrived on YouTube, the film found redemption. Viewers began pausing frame by frame, noticing small background details like coded numbers and mirrored imagery. Communities of fans emerged, decoding the mystery as if it were an encrypted transmission. The Signal stands as a strange fusion of fear and revelation. It explores the moment humanity realizes it is not at the top of the chain, but part of a greater experiment. The closing moments lift you into the unknown, leaving your pulse racing. The film reminds us that curiosity is the most dangerous signal of all, because once received, it cannot be unheard. Number 1. Upstream Color, 2013. Few films divide audiences as violently as Upstream Color, another creation from Shane Carruth. It abandons linear storytelling to weave a hypnotic connection between 2 damaged souls bound by a parasitic organism that invades their bodies and memories. It is part romance, part science fiction, part spiritual trance. Every frame pulses with meaning, yet refuses explanation. At release, the film baffled even professional critics. Many walked out unable to follow its elliptical structure. Others called it genius, comparing it to Terrence Malick's Meditations on Nature and Fate. Carruth again rejected Hollywood support, choosing to shoot, distribute, and score the film himself. That autonomy created one of the most unique cinematic languages ever recorded. The production was intimate, almost monastic. The small crew lived together for weeks, experimenting with natural light and sound textures. Carruth captured microscopic footage of living organisms to symbolize memory infection and rebirth. Actress Amy Seimetz described filming as both beautiful and terrifying, as though she was acting inside someone else's dream. Controversy arose when several countries refused theatrical release, calling it too abstract for audiences. Yet word spread online. Viewers on YouTube began uploading interpretations, creating digital pilgrimages for those seeking meaning in chaos. Some saw it as a metaphor for trauma, others as an ecological warning about the interconnectedness of all living things. Its impact slowly expanded. Universities began teaching it in film theory classes, while musicians sampled its sound design. Carruth himself withdrew from the industry afterward, saying the film had taken everything from him. That withdrawal only deepened its myth. Upstream Color is not just watched, it is absorbed. It drifts inside you long after the credits end, leaving a strange peace mixed with unease. It whispers that identity is fluid, that love and control are reflections of the same force, and that somewhere deep in the circuitry of life, all things echo each other endlessly. These 15 hidden sci-fi gems prove that imagination thrives far from studios and screens. Each one holds a secret, a vision born from struggle and silence, waiting on YouTube for new eyes to rediscover them. Which of these stories spoke to you most deeply? Subscribe, share, and let others find the forgotten future hiding in plain sight.